Hi, in this clip we're going to learn how to schedule a meeting in Zoom and how to navigate the various options available to you when you're scheduling a meeting in Zoom. Right now we're at the home page, zoom.us. I'm going to go to my account and this screen shows up. I'm already signed in. Now I want to go to the schedule a meeting button here in the upper right hand corner. So here we are in the meetings section. Note up here right away it says that your personal meeting ID is disabled. That's something I did earlier in settings, and I'll discuss all of our meeting settings in the clip after this one. Let's continue. Here's the topic. I want this to be fairly descriptive so you can easily delineate between your meetings when you're looking at them in Zoom. I'll paste in my brief descriptor. Here's a longer description option if you want it right here. I then choose when I want to have the meeting. I'll use this calendar option and I'll choose the 20th and I'll choose 2 p.m. and I'll make it an hour and a half long. Always make the duration of your meeting a little longer than the actual meeting so you have time to run over. And our time zone here is Mountain. Now if I click recurring meeting, I get these options as well. Upon choosing recurring meeting, I can set my recurrence as daily, weekly, monthly, or with no fixed time. We'll make this weekly. We'll repeat it every 2 weeks. We'll have it occur on Wednesdays. And you can end it either on a specific date or after a number of occurrences. I'll uncheck recurring meeting and continue. Required registration is next. I think required registration is a really good idea, so I'll go ahead and click this checkbox. We're not going to see any changes on our screen now, but when we save the details of this meeting, we'll get extra information about required registration. What happens in a nutshell is this. Once you require registration, the attendee does not get the URL for your meeting right away. Rather, they're given an invitation to your registration page. They register for the meeting using just their first and last name and their email address, and then the system sends them the URL of the actual meeting after they've registered. So this helps you in two big ways. One, it gives you a list of attendees and their email addresses that will be attending your session. And more importantly, it keeps that URL for your meeting away from the public. The only way to get the URL for your meeting is to register for it. So you'll have the names and email addresses of everybody attending. So it's going to really cut down on Zoom bombing or any other disruptive activities for your meeting. So I'll check required registration and I'll return to this at the end of our session today. Meeting password is next. I strongly recommend you use a meeting password for the same reasons to avoid any Zoom bombing. You can require it using this checkbox. It assigns you a password, but you can change this to whatever you like. So we'll leave it with this password. Host video needs to be on. Participant video needs to be off. You can use whatever audio you like. I'm working with computer audio, but I realize you can work with telephone and computer and telephone, clicking both. As far as meeting options, you don't want to enable join before host. The host always needs to be the first person there. Muting your participants upon entry is always a good idea. You can allow them to unmute themselves if you so choose during the meeting. Enabling the waiting room as long as you have a co-host to help let people in from the waiting room into your main meeting is a good idea. Only authenticated users can join. I would leave this off. This would mean that only people authenticated via Zoom, meaning having Zoom accounts, can join your meeting. I think that's a rather high bar to set for the attendees of your meetings. You can click this if everybody involved definitely has an authenticated Zoom account. Breakout room pre-assign is next. If you're working with a large number of people for your meeting and you want to pre-assign the breakout rooms so you don't have to do it on the fly during your meeting, you can do it here. You simply create the rooms here or import it from SCV, meaning an Excel sheet. If I click create rooms, I can manually add my rooms here and then manually add participants for each breakout room using their email addresses over here. If I want to pull in an Excel sheet, I can simply import from SCV and download this template to get a sense of what information they need. And the information is fairly simple. I'll drag it over here so we can all see it. It's simply two columns, one with the pre-assigned room names and then one with the email addresses of each person. So if you have a large enough group and you have both their room names and their email addresses in an Excel sheet, you can easily pre-assign who you want to go in what each room is. Otherwise, you can assign these on the fly or have Zoom automatically assign them during your meeting. I'll uncheck this. Recording the meeting automatically on the local computer. I always have this checked. In addition, I always click record on the toolbar, which is redundant, but I make sure that way that I do have the meeting recorded on my local computer. Alternative host is next. If you want to assign an alternative host, you can do so here simply by putting their email address in this box. They'll get an email, they confirm they are willing to be an alternative host, and then they can start your meeting or perform other host functions for you. And then finally, interpretation is language translation. If you enable language interpretation by checking this checkbox, you simply provide the email address of your translator, the language they're translating, the language they're translating to, and you can add more than one here if you like. That interpreter then gets an email asking them to confirm they're going to be an interpreter, and on that day, they will transcribe the language on the fly during your meeting, and the end user has a choice of choosing between the original audio stream or the translator audio stream. We will keep this unchecked and click Save. Upon clicking Save, you'll get this confirmation page that shows you all of the settings that you chose when you were scheduling your meeting. A few things to point out here. If you want to start the meeting right after you set it up, you can click this Start This Meeting option. If you want to change any of the settings, you can click Edit This Meeting and go back into the meeting scheduling options. The last thing I want to cover here is right here, the registration link and the copy invitation. Remember when we were first scheduling this meeting, we turned on required registration. This is our registration link right here, and here's our registration invite. So I'm going to click Copy Invitation. This gives us some canned language that they're being invited to a Zoom meeting and they need to register in advance, and the URL is right here. And you can copy and paste this text, change it to how you like, and then send it to the pool of potential attendees you have. This URL right here is the same as this URL right here. So nobody from your meeting gets the URL to the meeting just yet. All they're getting so far is the URL to the registration. When they click this, they'll be given this page, though with these fields unpopulated, and all these people need to do to register is put in their first name, their last name, their email address, and a confirmation email address. They can confirm that they're not a robot, and they can register. And then, and only then, will they be given an email with the URL to your actual meeting. If you want to look at that list of registrants before your meeting begins, you can do that by going to Reports here in the upper left-hand corner. Choose Meeting. Choose Registration Report. You can search it by time range, and then when your meeting shows up down here, you can click it. And that is pretty much it for all the options involved in scheduling a meeting. Be aware that under meeting settings, you can go into quite a bit more detail as far as fine-tuning the options involved in your meetings, and we'll learn about that in our next clip, Meeting Settings.